Welcome to another episode of The Future of Influence. So, today we're going to be exploring how modern digital media drives influence and shapes Orlando's economic development's marketing strategy. So, I'm Johnny Hughes, CMO of Avenue Z, and today I'm joined by a long term client and fellow Orlando business leader, Lorene Martinez, here from the Orlando Economic Partnership. So, Lorene, why don't you introduce yourself, talk about your role, and what OEP does?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And thanks for having me on this. This is really fantastic. So, my name is Lorene Martinez. I'm the Vice President of Marketing, Communications, and Branding here at the Orlando Economic Partnership. And our organization does economic and community development. So, what does that mean exactly? Well, we definitely are looking to grow our economy, to attract businesses here, to help our own businesses grow and flourish here in this market. But to do that, we also have to create the community and kind of create the assets and the resources and nurture those companies and help them be successful here. So we have a number of initiatives that help grow the talent here in Orlando. We have initiatives to develop leadership within the region. And then we also work very, very closely with our stakeholders and our partners, some of them on the public side, but mostly on the private side, to really make Orlando be that premier business destination that we know it is.
Lovely. Yeah, so we've had the opportunity of working together for over 6 years now. So we have very distinct audiences that you're marketing to, basically, right? We have new businesses that we're trying to attract to Orlando. We have talent that we're trying to bring into the community and make sure that they're exposed to all the amazing things Orlando has to offer. But also, how do we drive investors and engagement with existing communities? So, to warm things up, I thought we'd start with a very interesting question, which is, what was the most stereotypical Orlando-ish thing that you've done recently?
I typically don't do stereotypical Orlando things. At least not things that the greater world would think about, which are related to our tourism, since that is so top of mind for people and they think of Orlando. But I actually did do something very touristy this week, which is go to Disney Springs. And I ate at two of the restaurants, did some bowling there, did some shopping. So I was very much playing the tourist at Disney Springs this week.
That's hilarious. I am the same way. My son he just turned 7 and he hadn't been to any of the main theme parks. So
Oh,
he was like,
wow.
yeah, he was committed. He wanted to go to Universal.
Mm-hmm.
So we had tickets for that. And then of course the hurricane comes.
Mm-hmm.
So my stereotypical was living through a hurricane,
Oh, yeah.
losing power, and still going to Universal Studios with millions of other people there that came that day. But it was awesome.
Well, that's probably smart because every time we have a storm, I mean, we certainly prepare for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that the last several storms we've had very minimal damage and effects from it. And that is like the perfect day to go to one of the theme parks because people are, worried and understandably so. But you go there and the lines are shorter and the weather is typically cooler and it's like the perfect time.
We found a way. So great. So I want to start by talking about the tagline, unbelievably real. What does that brand message mean to you personally? But also, how does that guide your marketing and strategy around influence?
So, Unbelievably Real is a brand that we really launched about 3 years ago. And it kind of came about in an interesting way because we never have partnered with our visit organization, Visit Orlando, for our marketing efforts. And when you think about it, you have two powerhouse kind of marketing agencies that are marketing Orlando, but in very different ways. And we had been doing that for decades. So for the first time, we combined our resources. We put our heads together and talked about how do we move forward with really what is an identity for Orlando that people can start to see themselves in. And so when I think about Orlando Unbelievably Real, I see it every day. I see it in the interns that walk through our door and, have such great ideas. I see it in, companies like yours that are doing different and innovative things. I see it in the creativity that happens at the theme parks. I see it downtown with our beautiful artwork and our murals that we have, and just kind of that pop-up art. So it kind of pops up everywhere. And the idea behind Unbelievably Real was, if someone told you about the things that we have in Orlando, if someone told you about companies like Luminar that are creating technology for autonomous vehicles, companies like Lilium that are creating essentially flying taxis that can take you from here to Tampa in a short amount of time. If you think about, being able to interact with a transformer, all of those things seem unimaginable, and they seem like, you wouldn't really believe that, but it actually is happening here in Orlando. And that's part of what makes Orlando unbelievably real. So we have really found this fantastic avenue for storytelling to talk about Orlando and to give it a framework about who we are as a community, certainly from, tourism and leisure and conventions and shows perspective, but also from a business perspective, and take that a step further to even what it's like to just live here.
Mm-hmm.
And so when people are looking for a place to be successful for their companies, for themselves as individuals, and they're looking for those communities, it really gives us a way to tell our story, about the quality of life, about the options that you would find in Orlando. And when you compare us to other places, it really is a unique story, and it really is something that is unbelievably real right here.
Love it. Love it. What resonates with me as well with that tagline is there's been so much hype around artificial, intelligence, artificial. And so when I think of unbelievably real, you know, we're telling that story that this is the reality. This is true, authentic people, community, life, energy. And as an entrepreneur, that is attractive. You want to surround yourself with like-minded people that care for being dreamers and visionaries.
Absolutely.
And
and we have plenty of that here in Orlando.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So let's talk about marketing. So I would imagine over the years, at least even in the 6 years that we've worked together, marketing has evolved, right? So what are some of the shifts and strategies that you have seen that have adapted your approach to marketing OEP?
Well, we lean very heavy on digital marketing, of course. And some of that has to do with the fact that we are a not-for-profit. So we have to use our marketing dollars very wisely. And so we really have gone all in digital. So we rarely do, published pieces that are something you would hold in your hand, unless it's on your phone, of course, right? But we really have, our website is our foundation for all our marketing. We drive everything to our website. And, that's just something that's customary in the economic development world. And our target audiences, which are really consultants who are helping companies find the right location for themselves, they're called site selectors, or even the C-suites, the CEOs, the decision makers within companies. They need to be able to find the information about your community quickly, easily, and it has to be robust information. So our website, which is essentially 4 websites in one, as you know, we for our investorlando.org site, which is our business focused website, and it's 4 websites that actually look like one. So it's actually done brilliantly and beautifully. But we want people to be able to access maps there, to be able to find data, to be able to find real estate options, to learn about the talent and the talent pipeline that we have here, the demographic information. There's just really such a breadth of information that needs to be available, but in a very consumable way. And so that's really our challenge, is making sure that that foundational asset, which is the website, is constantly working for us, right? It's a 24/7 workhorse, because people from all over the country and certainly the world are looking for that information and finding it there. So keeping it constantly updated and fresh, and keeping that content new, and using, different formats, whether it's an infographic, or it's a video, or it's a podcast, or all of those different things help feed the new content. And then we layer that, of course, with all of our other marketing efforts, our social media, our advertising, our digital buys, the work that we do when we go to a trade show or a conference, for example. All of that is driving traffic to the website, and it all has to work together seamlessly to get us the results that we're looking for. And that would be in the form of prospects and leads of companies that are looking to come to Orlando for their business.
Love it. Yeah. So, I mean, clearly having those tools and that accessibility and that user journey to help them guide them through that process is so important. But also the look and feel. It has to be Orlando. We have to give them a taste of unbelievably real and what this feels like. And it's modern, it's new, it's inviting.
It's colorful.
It's colorful.
It's energetic. I would put that word in there.
Yes.
And it's not just for kind of the outsiders looking in, but really our own community as well, because we want our community and our residents and our local businesses to feel connected to Orlando and to share what they find unbelievably real about this community. And so kind of seeing that come through as well is part of what makes the website and a lot of the things that we put out feel authentic and energetic and help draw that attention in.
What about some of the news and publications, and how are you actively maintaining that type of content to be driving again more content and more influence back to the website? Are you seeing more of like an editorial approach to your content and strategy?
We do, yes, but we really like to tell our own story. I think that's probably been one of the big shifts from maybe 10 years ago to now, whereas before we really relied on that third-party validation, which is still very important. C-suites, are reading the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and listening to NPR, so it's important to be on those channels, whether it's earned or paid media. But at the same time, it's really important for us to be able to tell our own story and create those pathways where people can find it, so that when they're searching for information about Orlando, we're right up there as one of the top results that they find. So, and that's where your company helps us, and where you guys come in.
So talking about some of those shifts and just social behavior and digital behavior. Some of the data that we're seeing with the rise of TikTok and YouTube and Gen Z with a lot of short form media and content, clearly this is a very specific audience that we're marketing to. But where do you see aspects of things like TikTok play into a part in your world?
So that's an interesting question. We are very strong on LinkedIn. That's probably our number one platform where we like to, be out there. YouTube is very powerful for us as well. We do have a lot of videos on our website, but having that YouTube and being able to get that get those eyeballs from there is really important. TikTok, really have not ventured into TikTok yet. I was at an institute, a conference earlier this week, actually here in Orlando, and there was a room full of economic developers. And during 4 different sessions, I asked that question because we did have a social media discussion. Who here is on TikTok? And of a room of about 30 people, 4 different sessions, I only had one person raise their hand and say that, yeah, we've kind of ventured into that. And even then, it was kind of regulated to an intern, right? Like someone who kind of had these fresh ideas about how it could potentially be used. And it was almost kind of an experiment for them. So I'm just not sure our audience is there necessarily. So we just haven't ventured into that, but we're finding so much success in channels like LinkedIn and Facebook to some extent, as well as YouTube and Instagram, that we feel like we don't want to be out there just for the sake of being on a platform. Right. We want it to be very strategic and purposeful. And so for those reasons, we've decided to use the platforms that we're on right now.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. We have to make sure we're catering to the audience
Mm-hmm.
and delivering the right type of message there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure adaptions over time, maybe it's shorter bite-sized content,
Mm-hmm.
things that you would find on TikTok, but applying those to different channels.
Mm-hmm.
You start to see some of these platforms, even LinkedIn's put together like a new like feed type
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Yeah.
So
And I do think there is an appetite for some longer format videos. I mean,
mhm,
we haven't seen the drop off.
right.
So I think that, I don't know if it's making a comeback or if it never really went away, but I think that people's attention spans are longer than what you see on TikTok.
There you go. Okay, great. So just talking about, you know, your work over the years,
Mm-hmm.
has there been some big unlock or, some strategy or a piece of content or an aha moment that really has, just opened the door for performance in marketing?
So I would say one of the most innovative things that we launched is a digital twin of the Orlando region. So we embarked on a journey 2 years ago to create something that is a new experience for our target audiences that wouldn't necessarily require them getting in a car and driving around Orlando. The Orlando region is quite large from a land perspective, and a lot of our business hubs are really all around the region, to the north, to the south. We've got the downtown core, of course. We've got the University of Central Florida out to the east. So traditionally in economic development, if you have a company that's interested in coming to Orlando and is kind of in that point in their decision phase where they might choose our community, they would typically come here. And, we'd get in the car, we'd drive all around, sometimes in traffic, or we would sit down in a conference room and show them, a huge PowerPoint
Mm,
that touches on a whole bunch of different, data points and assets, and showing them resources and really showing them the why Orlando would be good for their business kind of case study. So now we have this new option where we've got a new marketing center, and people can come here and they can essentially get that same information, but via a digital twin. And there's aspects to our digital twin that make it 3D components to it, so they can really visualize it and kind of see themselves there without actually having to travel around.
mm.
So we've got some big ideas and some new places that we're hoping to take that digital twin, including having that out of market experience, so they don't necessarily even have to come to Orlando. But that is something very new and innovative. I've not seen any other economic development organizations do that. And yeah, I think that's probably one of the newest features that we've brought on as part of a sales asset.
So just thinking about the process, and putting myself in the shoes of a business that's looking to maybe relocate
Mm-hmm.
headquarters or open a location for their business.
Mm-hmm.
And they work with a site selector, they evaluate, they whittle down,
Mm-hmm.
um, they go through the digital twin. Like, where do you think is the most impactful tipping point of influence that really just seals the deal for Orlando?
So the tipping point for influence is so many different things depending on our customer, our clients, and what they're looking for. So it could be anything from talent that they're looking for and specific kinds of talents. We have 500,000 college students within a 100-mile radius of Orlando. And that is very important to a lot of companies because they want to make sure that they can find the right people and hire the right
Mm,
people to work at their companies. It might be the fact that we have an airport with 150 plus flights domestically and internationally, direct flights every single day. So it's very different for different companies depending on what their needs are. But I would add that the culture that we have built here and the quality of life that we have built here is very unique.
mhm.
This is a place that is known to welcome 75 million visitors a year. So we are very keen on our customer service, on being diverse, on being welcoming. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you've got new ideas and you're looking for a new inspiring place to come and live and work, Orlando would be a good option for you. And you're not going to run into roadblocks and stonewalling from other entrepreneurs. In fact, they're going to welcome you in, and they're going to want to build the ecosystem and help you get plugged in and get connected, so that we can see even more innovation and success here for our companies.
I agree. I live it firsthand. As a young entrepreneur getting started, I feel like certain markets could have just completely stonewalled me or kept me out. But you have these groups that want to take you under their wing and mentor you, see you rise up, and it really does raise the whole tide when everybody is working towards that same common goal.
Right. And helping to solve the same types of problems sometimes that may transfer from industry to industry.
Definitely. So let's talk about AI, right? So there's been a huge surge of AI and adoption and businesses, really trying to figure out how they can make that work for them. Have you explored how AI could be incorporated in OEP's marketing? Is that in the roadmap for the future?
I would say, well, absolutely, yes. We have incorporated AI. And we've kind of dipped our toes in a lot of different areas, but I would say, certainly like a lot of probably communications and marketing teams, those prompts for just ideation, for also taking what you've done, making it more concise. We've used it for photography and, kind of getting renderings and images that we may not necessarily have in-house. And so it's really cut down on the amount of time that it takes to do some projects, with kind of the caveat that we know it's not perfect. And so you can never replace that element of human experience and expertise. And so checking on that work. But absolutely, we hear it from companies too. They're also trying to incorporate AI, and we're seeing them pivot and them, change some of their models for the better. But I think it's important to kind of stay connected. And I think that's the beauty of an organization like ours. We are a convener, and so we can bring the business community together. We're all talking about these things, having these conversations about how best to leverage, a technology like AI that we know is not going away, that is going to just continue to build. And I should also say that AI really is part of our core competencies in Orlando. We have a very strong modeling, simulation, and training industry here, and it really was born out of the space race and the amount of defense work that we have happening here, where your ability to learn and learn your job doesn't just come through schooling, but it actually comes through experiences that are simulated, that can, help you learn how to fly a plane or, do surgery. So all of that type of technology in modeling and simulation uses AR and VR and XR. There's an element of cybersecurity to it, of course. There's AI into it. There's so many of those technologies that kind of converge, and it really makes Orlando a market that has built over the course of not just a few years, but several decades, this expertise in a lot of the technologies that people are now just hearing about and getting used to. We've already spent decades working in that area.
Wow. Yeah, while you were talking, it made me think about the fact that by working on those different aspects of your website, the data points, the content, the information and stats that those site selectors need, those, much like a search engine, those AI engines are also gaining that information.
Yep, absolutely.
So keeping that up to date also helps to inform those AI engines how to make sure that OEP in Orlando is accurately being represented.
Yes.
So
I've definitely done a lot of prompts where it all sounds very familiar to me, and I know it's pulling from stuff I've written that's out there on the internet.
It is you.
It is me.
You. Yeah, sweet. So let's fast forward 5 years. Okay. Two questions here. First, what do you see the biggest shift in terms of digital trends? Whether that's a channel, maybe it's a new vehicle of content. What do you see on the horizon? And I will part two that question after this answer.
That is a hard question. And I believe I've asked you that question before in the past. I've said, Johnny, what's,
Yeah.
besides a website, what's
Right.
the next thing that we need to be looking for? I don't have a specific answer except to say that I do think it's critical for a business, especially like ours, right? That is a not-for-profit and works within these constraints of economic and community development, but to stay nimble and to constantly be able to adapt to what is happening in the market, right?
Mhm.
And being able to adjust. I mean, who knew that we would be using virtual meetings as much as we have in the last 5 years? But we quickly shifted our strategies and shifted the way we do our everyday work to, fit into the new world.
Mhm.
And I think that, we're well positioned to kind of stay with that future focused mind on being able to adapt to what's coming so that we can make sure that we're at the forefront of that and that the rest of the world knows that we are.
No, whether that was the pandemic or
Mm-hmm.
everyone going to Zoom, I think the steps like the digital twin and being proactive
Mm-hmm.
at thinking about how you could be there for our audience in many different ways,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't know, I
Right.
mean, the truth be told, we see that there's trends towards certain aspects and behaviors, but at the end of the day, where we get information, what do we trust, what sources do
Mm-hmm.
we trust,
Mm-hmm.
that's all going to be something that evolves, and you got to
Yes.
stay nimble.
Yeah. And I would say that credibility is our currency. I mean, that's all we have as an organization is, making sure that we have the trust of those that we work with and for, so that they know that we are mission focused and that what they are getting here is quality and credible results.
So, what advice would you give a leader that needs to stay ahead of those trends, but doesn't get too far ahead of themselves that
Hmm.
they're following the new flashy light?
I would say my recommendation is to have a wide network um, of experts that you can talk with, that you can go grab coffee with. I mean, I'll have coffee with a 24-year-old entrepreneur, and then I'll have lunch with a seasoned CMO who's been in the industry for 30 plus years.
Mhm.
So I think having that diversity of opinions and perspectives, because your clients are in that same kind of age range as well, and everyone kind of consumes information differently. And from what I hear from a Gen Zer is very different the way they see the world, and so you have to adjust the way you market to that target audience. And sometimes they tell you about like the latest technologies that they've discovered and that they're finding useful. So I think kind of staying open and having a diversity of voices that you're talking to, and things that you're reading about, I think kind of helps you stay ahead of the game.
Yeah, and testing and optimizing,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, having some budget towards R&D and
Mm-hmm.
exploration, but not trying to jump the shark
Yes,
too soon.
exactly.
It's great. So I have my part two of my question
Mm-hmm.
from previously, which is, where do you see Orlando's economic reputation
Mm-hmm.
5 to 10 years from now?
Oh, I think we're seeing it already. I think that we are a global city. We are a global creative city. And I think that we are just as competitive as, cities like Madrid and Montreal and, so many regions that come to mind as being those kind of globally connected cities. I mean, we're there. I think it's hard for us who live here to see that, but when you look at the assets that we have and the talent and the way that we're growing, we really are one of those global cities and one of those premier cities to work in.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to be a
Mm-hmm.
part of that. I can see it, I can feel it, and I'm excited for the rest of the world to be able to really continue to see
Mhm.
Orlando rise to that reputation. And so wanted to say thank you, by the way. This
Sure.
was fantastic for you making time for us,
Mhm.
talk about all things digital marketing and influence. So that's going to be a wrap for today's episode. Lorene Martinez from Orlando Economic Partnership. Make sure to look her up on LinkedIn, give her a follow. Thanks everybody for watching.